For the Imperial Guard, there is no other reason to exist, and they deliver judgment swiftly, without prejudice or remorse. The Emperor is impressed by the skill he has shown and applauds the Guard as he bows. This Earth saw an extremely swift development of technology in its future, but it was not the hope many believed it would be. Due to the unending war on resources, the Earth continued to be destroyed, and thus, humanity reached for the stars in order to conquer other planets. In the end, life on Earth ended because of an invasion by an unknown alien species. The survivors wandered aimlessly through space for a long time, but they fortunately found a planet very similar to Earth. As a collective, humanity decided to call this new planet Novus, which means new home. They sent out these coordinates to all of the human ships. And so, all the humans who have been scattered around the galaxy united and formed factions within this new society. First is the Balado Federation, where numerous alien species are mixed among humans. Second is the Accretion Empire. They possess an army of machinated soldiers who serve and obey. The last ones are the Holy Crowrite Empire. Its priests can use force energy and possess high mental fortitude. However, even after all that's happened, these three factions vied for the limited resources on Novus, and as a result, humanity once again is preparing for a war on resources, which might be their last. But if it's not, the next one will be fought with stones and sticks. At the Accretion Empire Machination Lab, Commander Hemilis Custoria tells a young boy that he's next, although he will be compared a lot to the one that came before him. This is where he is to show his king what he is capable of, so he should not forget that this is a very important day for him and for all other trainees. Luka, an Imperial Guard trainee, suggests he wait and see who the unlucky one is. Hemilis likes this attitude and hopes he lives up to it. As Luka gears up, he thinks that he must at least be capable of dodging and blocking bullets. It's the most necessary skill in order to become an official Imperial Guard. He has completed all the simulation training at the highest difficulties. He is a soldier that is training for the Imperial Guards, who has heightened spatial awareness thanks to a procedure that upgraded his perception. His opponents stand before him as he enters, 5 death row inmates with very cheap equipment. Luka slowly draws his blade and thinks that this will not take him longer than 10 seconds. With that, he charges in, cutting the head of one inmate before he could even get a shot in. The others naturally turn to him, but Luka does not move. This is an opportunity for him to make a good impression on the Emperor. He must do something noteworthy to, well, be of note. He wonders if he can do what he's thinking of doing, as he has never done it before, but he must do it now. As he heightens his senses to the limit, he can feel the sweat coming off the inmates. He can feel their irregular heartbeats, afraid of what he will do next. Luka's mind only becomes focused on his senses, and as soon as the inmates shoot, he deflects all their bullets back at them, impressing Hemilis and the Emperor too. With this successfully done, he breathes a sigh of relief, although it has taken a toll on his body. However, this is a necessary sacrifice, as it has increased his value. After he exits the showing area, Hemilis says that he did not expect to see him use ballistic trajectory control, as it's not even in the curriculum yet. Luka tells him that he just copied the guy who came before him, but Hemilis says that it doesn't matter. That guy is from a renowned household. He was already taught that curriculum, so he's different from an orphan like him. He is growing to like him, as he certainly has a gift. Before Luka can wonder what he means, Hemilis reaches into his eye socket and, to the dismay of the others around him, pulls his eye out. Hemilis is even more excited, as Luka is not even fazed by the pain. He must have done some great pain tolerance training. That's why he likes him. Luka is glad to hear that. This eye he was going to take out anyway, and would like to request an eye that can predict trajectories. After everything is said and done, another trainee by the name of Ile comes into Luka's dorm, as he wants to talk, but seeing as he's half naked, perhaps it was too sudden. Luka tells him to come in as he dresses, so Ile sits on the same bed as him, and explains that he was impressed with his performance. Luka tells him that he's in the wrong place if he wishes to exchange praise, calling him young master. He knows about this guy, Ile Karthika, just with his aura alone. One could tell that he's from the famous Karthika household. If he's logical about this, there's no need to be aggressive to someone from a noble household. One could just say that he's envious, but perhaps it's his tiredness too. Ile hands him a pill. He came to specifically give him this. It will decrease his sensitivity, so he can rest better at night. Lucas says that he doesn't need it, but Ile tells him to take it away, as he will not be able to train properly tomorrow if he doesn't get a good rest. He should know that mental fortitude cannot carry him through everything, although it can do most things. Luka takes the pill, and immediately feels that it's not some knockoff from the slums. It's a genuine pill. Luka also praises his abilities. He just copied what he did after all. Ile explains that he has a mechanical eye for combat, so it wasn't hard for him. He was actually more impressive since he went on with just his instincts. The commander also seemed to acknowledge him as an irregular too. That's why he's giving him a mechanical eye from his own pocket. Luka says that it's just his hard work that he put in. Nobility is excellent, while the lower classes are trash after all. He cannot let go of a rare opportunity like this as a lower class citizen. Ile stays silent for a bit, but then repeats the nobility's excellence part. He did pass the selection process, but he knows that there are many others who failed it, right? He also thinks that there's people who paid money to manipulate results. Luka wonders if that's possible, and while there's no proof, Ile strongly believes that it is. Those like him without support have never failed the cultivation process, because they all rose up with only their skills. Luka has never expected to see a noble say that not all nobles are excellent. But what is he trying to say here? Ile forwards a handshake and tells him that people like him are the ones who should succeed the most. He will be cheering him on from now on. Luka accepts his handshake, but he already planned on victory. This is all for the Empire after all. Ile looks at him with a certain kind of sadness as he says this. This is a story about a boy who was only raised to be used as a weapon in the tyrannical empire known as Akrisha. The next day, the trainees are all at the shooting range, and Luka, using his new eye, lands all of his shots cleanly. He pulls the training doll closer, showing that all of his shots were centered. Eli is impressed by this. He's not the top student for nothing after all. He also asks if he has grown accustomed to his right eye, and also asks if it's not unfair to be this good with a gun when he's a close combat fighter. Luka says that members of the guard must be good with all types of weapons. Additionally, he does not want to hear this from someone who managed to shoot every shot through the same hole. Ile laughs it off, as guns are his specialty, but Luka tells him to not be so nonchalant, as he will surpass him soon. Ile will welcome it when and if it happens. Just like he told him before, he will root for him. The Empire needs more people like him after all. The value of talent and ability is slowly being diluted in their empire. As long as one has status and power, even the worst shots in history can become expert marksmen. However, if more naturally talented people like him appear, people will be able to tell between talent and no talent. Luka tells him that this sounds like he is criticizing the Empire's systems. If he were to report what he said to HQ, he would not get off scot-free, even if he is a Karthika. Ile gives him a smile and says that if he's willing to do that, he wouldn't have told him about it. He's aware that he's a good person. He thanks Luka for worrying about him so much, who only finds him annoying. 2 years into the training, in the third quarter, every trainee is put in a wagon-like vehicle and dragged to the battlefield. Hamilis tells them that Luka and Ile will act as platoon leaders. If any trainee has an issue with that, they can stand up and leave right now. Since nobody does so, he continues with his explanation. Across the gorge they are at now, there is a Korite outpost, illegally stationed in their territory. This training is to test how they will perform in the field, and since they have no need for prisoners, they are allowed to kill on sight. Everyone does so, but Ile is quite amazed that they are on their first real mission. Luka wonders why he's so nervous. They have all killed before, after all. Ile understands, but this is different, as it's the first time they are facing an outside threat. Every faction on this planet, including theirs, have planet's Earth humanity as their ancestors, so it sort of feels wrong. Luka tells him that his emotions will only get in the way, and he should look behind them too. Does he think that the senior guard will protect them? This is a full-body mechanical armor, Class Legion. Those guys are here to supervise them. They might even just outright kill them if they try to take prisoners. He agrees that the idiots who are not aware of their place do not belong here. On this planet, other outside threats are like bugs for the Empire. They have learned that they all use and deceive the Empire for their own selfish gain. Ile knows that's what they have been taught after all. It doesn't take long for the base to be turned into a graveyard for those within. The Empire soldiers ruthlessly killing defenseless people without remorse. Luka walks through the chaos and doesn't see a single weapon among the Korans, meaning that this training will end without a hitch. He soon stumbles upon a lone child who cries for his mother helplessly. Luka sees something of himself in that child, who is so scared that he can no longer move. He is a non-combatant, offering no resistance, and he also doesn't have a gun to end his suffering cleanly. However, even if he pities him, he got his orders, to kill without prejudice. He will no longer hesitate. He will not let the seed of those who leech off of them prosper. He punctures the wall with his blade, but cannot let himself hit the child. He crouches down and tells him to pretend that he's dead. He might be able to survive if he does so. Luka shouldn't do this. If the headquarters were to find out, something horrible will happen to him. As he leaves, he wonders if he should go back and finish the job, but that's when someone does it for him. There is a sharpshooter above, Ile, who understands him, but this is not the way. Luka's heart freezes as he realizes what he had done. If someone else was watching, he's screwed, but he can trust Ile, as he will not report it. Even so, he must keep an eye on him, even if he's a friend. Fortunately, or unfortunately, he will not have to keep an eye on him, as he is blasted by a beam of energy, and before Luka can react, a force user appears next to him, telling them to go to hell. Luka connects the dots. This bastard created that explosion, and if he has no weapons on him, that can only mean one thing. Another trainee appears, and is now attacking him from behind, but without even looking, the force user blasts him apart. Luka now knows that this is a force user, whose soul is wretched with pain, as this was not a base, but a settlement. They killed people who were doing their best to live. Luka wonders if the captain knew about this as they regroup. If he would have told them in advance, they would have been more careful. Luka can react to his explosions because of his advancements, and can see that the force user is pushing himself too. He would like to do a battle of attrition, even if his body will be the one to collapse if he keeps maintaining the high-speed maneuver. He needs to attack while he's still in this state, and move even faster, to the point that he can dodge point-blank attacks. Luka knows that his hesitation caused Ile to be in this state. He has learned countless times about the force users. He will do whatever it takes to make up for this mistake. Before he charged in, he ordered the others to disperse and take care of the stragglers. The Force user immediately acts surprised and charges his power, Luka knowing that he was acting as bait for the others to get away. In order for someone to use the Force, they must perform a preparatory action. For example, it would be the hand signs this guy is making. As long as he can disrupt that space, he can kill him. Luka successfully does just that, but the Force user manages to use his other hand to strike, almost eliminating Luka in a single shot. However, as soon as the Force user sees that Luka is just a child, he cannot bring himself to do it, which allows Luka to dig his sword deeper and kill the man. Luka catches his breath, knowing that if that man went through with his strike, he would have been dead now. Korite is made up of fanatics that are beyond human comprehension. Why did he refuse to kill him? Luka realizes why they are told to not let their emotions consume them, why this is all for the Empire, and why they are taught that everyone else is a hive of worms. The Imperial Guards exist only to protect the Empire and its Emperor, but now, through the screams of pain and the smell of smoke, Luka questions everything he has been taught. After the mission was over, the injured trainees went to the recovery room, where now, Ile asks Luka how it felt to almost die. He could ask him the same thing, as he was basically cut in half. Ile laughs it off and says that this time, he got new arms and legs. How much did he change? Luka explains that his back was destroyed, so he got some titanium bones and artificial skin. They are both going to end up with entirely new bodies anyways, so they might as well get them early. Ile stays silent for a moment, and then tells Luka that the commander probably knew of the Force user. The reason they did not hear a thing about it was because of the test. Luka noticed too, but since their seniors did not step in, they probably figured the trainees could handle it, as nobody was killed in action. Ile finds it weird that he and the other trainee who got blasted survived the attacks. It happened twice, so is it really a coincidence? Perhaps that Force user never intended to kill them. Luka remembers his face and the thoughts that accompanied it, but he refuses to let them fester. He is a soldier. Letting him live was a mistake on that man's part. That utterly pathetic mercy is the reason why the Korin will soon sniffle out. He will certainly regret his decision as he sees him butcher his comrades from hell. Ile suddenly breaks him out of his thoughts by asking why he closed the eyes of that Korin girl who was already dead. He would really like to know. Luka turns around and tells him that he talks more. Did he get a new tongue with those upgrades? That was simply a mistake, one which will never happen again. With this training, the trainees have completed 2 of the 4 years of training they must do. They are now seniors, so they should be models for the new recruits, especially Luka and Ile, who are still top 1 and 2, respectively. The examiner sees potential in them. They can even be centurions, so they should keep training diligently, for the glory and protection for their empire and its emperor. They both agree, while Luka thinks of the centurion. The Imperial Guard is organized simply. There are 1,000 guardsmen, consisting of 10 centuries, all commanded by a chief centurion. The commander of the guards is also the centurion of the 1st century. Cadets like Luka, after finishing the full body mechanization, are assigned the lowest ranking century, the 10th century. If he becomes a centurion of the 10th century, he will make it really big. He and Ile go to spar with Ile pushing even harder than before, and fighting with more fierceness. Luka notices this too, and chalks it up to his new arm. However, a fight is still a fight, and those with more knowledge and experience always win. Luka stops his punch before hitting Ile, marking their 124th round, and his 124th win. They go to the rooftop after this. Ile actually believed that he would win. Luka tells him that if getting new parts was all they need to get strong, training would have been worthless. Ile has noticed that he's become more rigid after the examiner's speech. It seems like the idea of centurion impacted him quite a bit. Luka says that it's only natural. If he has experience serving as an Imperial Guard, he would be welcomed anywhere. Ile tells him to relax. He's in a position where his birthplace no longer matters. Luka glances at him and says that unlike him and most people, he has no place to return to. He must keep climbing and climbing, or it's wraps for him. He also has tremendous talent, but he lacks drive. Why does he want to be a guardsman anyhow? Ile has heard that many times before, and now from him as well. In truth, he wanted to be a scholar, an archaeologist more specifically. He wanted to study the ancient arcane civilization. Luka asks why he doesn't do that then, but Ile explains that it's banned for someone to study the arcane civilization. Besides, his house has already produced more than few generals. They would never allow him to be anything else at this point. Luka asks if he's really saying that he's sad, because he's not getting what he wants. He's acting quite spoiled here. There are countless in the slums who are not guaranteed another day of life. Plenty are already thankful they have enough to eat. Ile thought he would say that, but he was just sharing a secret with a friend. Luka says that others may interpret this as criticism of the Empire, and if they report it, things will be bad for him. Ile knows that he won't do that, because he's kept his secret too. Luka excuses his behavior. He hesitated only because his opponent was not a combatant. Even if it was not for him, he decided to go back and kill him already. He is loyal to the Empire and the Emperor for allowing him to show his talents. The enemies of the Empire are his enemies too, and his as well, no matter what he thinks. Ile smirks and calls him a liar. If his trust of the Empire surpassed simple loyalty, he would have killed him already. He really shouldn't push himself too hard. as it's not healthy. Luka calls him an idiot who will die if he keeps this up. In the third year, they go on a reconnaissance mission in an uninhabited neutral zone. There, they find an arcane site, which still has energy, despite being millions of years old. Ile is fascinated and asks Luka if this is not cool. It's proof that there were civilizations which explored the stars before they even existed. Luka has drawn a line, but Ile does not seem to hesitate to cross his. He couldn't care less about them, as this mission is part of their training. If they meet another force here, they are going to fight. Simple as. Ile also doesn't care about that. Even if they are unbeatable, someone from the guard will help them. Someone speaks from behind, saying that the present exists because of the past, and that record allows them to predict what will occur in the future. If he thinks about it like this, it makes sense that so many are interested in history. This is another guard trainee, Claude Ramones. Luka knows his family. It's not as big as the Karthikas, but it's still respected. He wants to ask one thing about Luka, as he's quite fond of him, and wants to know if he's seeing anyone. Luka immediately puts up his defenses and tells him not to come any further. Claude tells him to relax. He asks this because he wants to introduce him to his sister. Luka says that he's an orphan from an orphanage, but Claude says that it doesn't matter, as he will probably end up his superior anyway. He should think about it, as his sister is quite pretty. Ile plays around with him, saying that he's quite popular with the ladies. Suddenly, they both sense something, and they all get into position. They got a biological response from the front, so Luka orders the others to go and spread out while he and Luka man the front. Luka sees something up ahead, but he can't quite pinpoint it. However, after staring for a while longer, he sees that the being in front of them is a Korite paladin. He seems to notice them too, and readies a spear to throw. Luka can only scream at Claude to run, but it's already too late, as the spear is lunged forwards by the paladin, completely eradicating Claude. He could do nothing to react. These paladins are above mere force users. They are a threat that they cannot comprehend currently. The spear came from the arcane site, and before Luka knew it, the guy in front of him was gone. The same guy that was cheerfully talking to him just a few moments ago is now missing his upper body, and his robotic legs are trying to figure out what to do. Luka tries to use his mechanical eye to calculate the trajectory of the next attack, but it's giving him an error, as even it cannot possibly predict this opponent. The other trainees start shooting from behind, and Ile tells Luka to get a hold of himself. If he just stands there, he will die. They must fight in order to stall. Luka knows that he's right. Even if they would try to run, they would not be able to escape the situation. All they can do is fight, until the Imperial Guard gets here. If they manage to hold out for 10 or maybe 20 seconds, he is sure that a member of the Imperial Guard will appear. The paladin pulls out another spear and lunges it at Luka, making him realize that holding out for a dozen seconds is not possible. The spear breaks his helmet and cuts his cheeks. He doesn't even have time to catch his breath, as another spear comes flying towards him from behind, and when he sees it, he is faced with the ugly head of death once again. His mind falters, believing that he cannot fight against this beast, but that's when he remembers the commander's words. He saw that he looked like a little piggy, who just realized that it's about to be slaughtered, and warned him. If he dared to turn his back on any enemy, he would receive a bullet to the head, and that goes for everyone. If their enemy swings their blade, they shall do the same, only harder. Those of the Imperial Guard are not weaklings, but the soldiers of the Emperor. 3 seconds have passed, and Luka decides to move. Before he's completely annihilated, he uses all of his might to strike the spear, which has broken its speed, but it still comes flying at him, and creates a large dust cloud at the explosion site. A part of it frolics in the air before landing down. Luka has survived, although he can no longer use his attacking hand. He knows that the paladin isn't about to just stop attacking, and sure enough, as the seconds count down, the paladin unleashes mighty strikes with his blade, cutting Luka's right hand off, but also cutting up the people behind him, including Ile. Due to how many are injured behind him, Luka can guess that the paladin wasn't actually aiming at him, but now he's actually doing just that, about to unleash even more power, causing Luka to fall into utter despair. However, he remembers who he is 12 seconds in, and even in his sad state, charges in, feeling only rage for his enemy. Far away, an Imperial Guard uses his boosters to fly towards their area, and even uses the additional ones to gain more speed. He treks the forest with no issue, and arrives just when the paladin and Luka are about to crash. He is not going to let a prospect of the Imperial Guard die, so he grabs the paladin's head, and using the momentum he has, punts him into the ground. He is not done yet, as he pushes the boosters even harder and pulls out his gun while dragging the paladin to the ancient site. When they arrive, the Imperial Guard punches the paladin straight into the site, making it glow, and bringing Luka to awe. The Imperial Guard returns from his conquest, proving what the Empire is capable of. Luka is very glad to be saved, but this has not ended just yet. Even in his battered state, the paladin does not give up, and summons all of the strength he can muster. The Imperial Guard has noticed his adamancy. He wishes to suffer, so he will fulfill that request with the best weapon at his disposal. Luka recognizes that weapon. It's a part of the Legion set. He has always wondered who is stronger, an Imperial Guard, or a paladin capable of using the Force. With this battle, he will have his question answered. They both strike at each other's blades, the Imperial Guard pushing harder, because he knows that the paladin is weakened. However, he soon disproves that, as he pushes the Imperial Guard back, and they begin unleashing a flurry of blows while in the air. Before landing and creating a big explosion, they soon return to where they came from, fighting at the exact same speed. Luka is amazed. He cannot hope to even track these guys. That's how fast they are. He can see. This is how a true Imperial Guard fights. Even if he believes in him, he can only hope that he actually wins. The Imperial Guard pushes his blade too far, allowing the Paladin to counterattack and break it. But this also allows the Imperial Guard to grab his head and push the Paladin to his doom. Using the last of his strength, the Paladin comes to a stop and uses the force to grab the spear that is behind Luka. At that moment, Luka had only one thought in mind. The Imperial Guard will be unable to dodge the spear because he had never experienced it before like he has. He knows that he will die if the Imperial Guard does, so he must do something. Before the spear flies away, Luka puts his foot in its trajectory. He hopes that this is enough to make it miss, and as it closes in on the Imperial Guard, it goes past him, and the Paladin grabs it. Since he has it in his hands, he charges it up with tremendous force. The Imperial Guard realizing what he is doing, he will not let him do as he pleases, so he charges up a punch and pummels the Paladin into the ground, creating a large explosion and ending the fight. Luka can only wonder what happened and who survived, because he can no longer move, but he hopes that the Imperial Guard is the one that's coming to him right now. Sure enough, it is. The Imperial Guard recognizes his achievement. He couldn't have killed that bastard without him. He also inquires about his wounds, more specifically on his abdomen. Luka tells him that he got hurt when he tried to dodge his force slash. The Imperial Guard extends a hand to grab him, as he will assist him in returning to the base. That's when Luka sees something which shocks him. Legion. The full-body mechanical armor of the Empire is only bestowed to the Imperial Guards. They remove all of the flesh as it is weak, and in its place they put machinery, which makes the Imperial Guard become the ultimate weapon. Every trainee dreams of receiving a Legion, as it is a testament to their hard work, and also the Imperial Guard. However, what Luka is seeing now shocks him, as this Imperial Guard's head is missing. Luka asks, he is alive with no brain. Is he a human, or has he fully become a machine? This makes the Imperial Guard realize that his head and brain is gone. He screams out in the pain he should have felt up until now, and falls to the ground, lifeless. Luka finally realizes his mistake. He has been training, day in and day out, hoping to become one of these beasts. His body is becoming colder and colder. He also can't stop shaking, making him wonder if he can survive until help arrives. What he's seeing right now, this grotesque rejection of humanity, might be the last thing he sees. Ile asks if he's still alive, and Luka also asks the same. Ile says that he's not in the best condition, but he will survive. Luka asks about the others, but besides them, everyone is dead. Ile asks how his wounds are, and Luka doesn't sugarcoat it. He will die soon. He also asks what he's going to do now, as he should look ahead. The life he yearned for is right in front of him, within grasp. Ile doesn't get him. Forwards is the direction of the Empire, and Balado. Luka knows what he said. He cannot find what he wishes for within the Empire. He will be fine, so he should go. Reinforcements will get here soon, and once they meet them, they will have to return to the Empire once again, which he can figure out he hates. With this encouragement, Ile stands up and leaves. He comes from a background that is guaranteed wealth and fame, along with tremendous ability. Any Empire citizen would be jealous of him, so that's why he can't understand him. However, when he was talking about his dreams, that was the brightest he saw him smile. He truly felt human at that moment. With this in mind, he hopes that he lives how he wants, and is happy too, because he will not find it here. Suddenly, Luka feels a press on his abdomen, which is from Ile, who has not left. Seeing how he acted made him worried that he would die, and he cannot live guilt-free if he lets him rot here. Luka sighs as the Empire ship arrives. He truly is an idiot. After this whole situation, Luka receives new parts, but still looks at a catalog of parts, wondering which will make him less human. Ile arrives, excited to see that he's interested in something, and recommends the F-24 reuse model. It has short adaptation speed, allowing him to go on the battlefield sooner, and it's much better than what he's using now. Luka tells him to stop coming out of the shadows like that if he doesn't want to get punched in the face. Ile apologizes for surprising him. He doesn't want a broken nose after all. After they returned to the Empire and Luka completed his treatment, he was called to different departments in order to be investigated. They wanted to talk with him about what happened with the 3 cadets and the Imperial Guard, which was killed. This incident is now called the Quran Paladin encounter, and now he thought that they wanted to investigate further, but it seems like he's called for another reason. Ile asks if he heard about the artifact they found at the site they went to. There are tons of arguments on who owns it now. Luka is already suspected as such. That damn cube is the reason behind all of this bullshit. He asks Ile who will retrieve it, and Ile tells him that they are assembling a team that only has specialists. If the Holy Alliance refuses to give both the historical site and the artifact, a huge war will likely occur. If the Empire were to battle against the Korra, the Balado would only profit by watching them fight. That is why so many small-scale battles were taking place, where they could tolerate the losses of men. Luka is not that interested in politics. He's a grunt. He takes his orders and fights. That is what a member of the Imperial Guard is supposed to do after all. This makes Luka think of the Imperial Guard that saved them, and of what the commander told him after he explained what happened. He said that it was a phantom phenomena, caused by residual signals. Luka wonders if that really is true, but it can't be, as the guard reacted to his words even after he died. That was no phantom phenomenon. This is a question that he still wants answered. However, the headquarters refused to give him an answer, and he's not dumb enough to look for information on his own. There is an extravagant location within the Empire training facilities of the cadets that doesn't really fit with the others. The visiting room is created for cadets to meet their friends and family. Luka thought he would never come here, since he is an orphan, but surprisingly enough, someone did come to look for him. Lillian Ramones, Claude's sister. Luka can only wonder why she's here, perhaps to question him about Claude's death, since he was assigned leader. Lillian appeases his worries by saying that she's not here to hate him. The moment her brother became an Imperial Guard, their family was expecting news of this magnitude eventually. She actually wanted to see him, as her brother talked about him for quite a while. He said that he was talented amongst the other cadets, and asked if she was interested in meeting with him. Luka knows that she heard where he comes from, but Lillian actually prefers it that way. There are fewer formalities that they need to do because of it. Luka feels that it seems like she's interested in meeting him, which makes her ask if he's opposed to it. Luka is honest. He doesn't know anything about her, and why him anyway? Lillian tells him that they can get to know each other better, and the fact that her dead brother asked it should be enough, right? She also believes that he has a lot to benefit from this, which most people would accept in an instant. Luka understands it's an offer he has no reason to refuse, especially since she comes from a good background and everything. All that he did up until now was to succeed in life, so if he can get married to a noble woman, he would get closer to his goal. However, this seems far too easy. That is why he feels reluctant. It seems that she's hiding something, and that something is clawing at her back. Luka promptly refuses and says his farewells. He used to think that Ile was stupid for trying to escape from this empire, since he's from a noble house and all. But he never thought that he would also be dumb enough to make a decision based on his gut feeling. He is sure Lillian will take this as an insult to her nobility. He can only hope that nothing bad will happen from this. Instead of all that, she suddenly grabs his hand and apologizes for rushing him. They should just start with being friends first. Luka didn't mean it like that, but Lillian doesn't give him time enough to explain, as she sprints away. Luka looks at his hand, and knows that she will be hard to get rid of. Next, Luka goes to the physical training room, where he meets with the fighting instructor of the Imperial Guards, Kinuan, who did not expect him to come here at all. Luka wants to learn from him, but Kinuan feels that there's not much he can teach him about fighting. He's already skilled. He only remembers a few actually surpassing his skills. This makes Luka believe that there are still people stronger than him, and he's not satisfied with being the best just among the cadets. Kinuan tells him to not rush so much. He is still young after all. Kinuan is not that strong, and also doesn't hold a domineering attitude like the other instructors. Also, unlike them, he uses a low power augment. Comparing it to the new augment he just got, Luka should be 10 times stronger. The only thing he has a disadvantage in is that he doesn't have a full body augmentation. If he cannot win against him, he will not stand against someone as strong as one of those paladins. He thanks Kinuan for the opportunity, who feels like he didn't have much of a choice. But it doesn't matter. He should come at him already. Luka does just that, and Kinuan easily deflects his punch, seeing his new augment, which he probably wanted to test out. Luka knows that he's a retired Imperial Guard, but he also knew that he wouldn't flinch against a simple attack like this. He lets out a flurry of blows, forcing Kinuan into a defensive stance, and allowing him to try and finish this with a swift strike. Kinuan tries to defend himself, but Luka grabs his clothes and presses further, thinking that he has won. Unfortunately for him, Kinuan isn't an instructor for nothing, and within a second, puts Luka in the air. He is confused by this, but swiftly lands down and charges in, as he will not be stopped by just this. His kick flies through the air, but Kinuan grabs his leg and throws him in the air once again, making him land harshly. Luka just doesn't get what is going on, but Kinuan rips into him. Not only has he failed to gauge his opponent's strength, but he also dared to let his mind wander while in a fight. He should answer truthfully now. Why is he in such a rush for strength? Luka tries to figure out what just happened. From his point of view, his first attack should have hit Kinuan in the chin. However, as soon as Kinuan touched his arm, something happened. His body staggered somehow, like he lost control of it or something. Or to be exact, kinetic energy that was sent to Kinuan came back to him. He asks Kinuan what happened, and so he explains that it was just a self-defense method of his. Luka turns to him and asks if he could learn it, but only then sees the state that Kinuan is in. He probably doesn't want to learn since he saw him like this. There is always a price for shortcuts, and well, this is one of them. They both sit down, and Kinuan asks Luka what he learned from their fight. Luka explains that he felt charmed, like his body moved on its own, and was out of his control. Kinuan tells him the name of the combat method, Archi's Victima, or more commonly known as the Archi's combat method. Luka knows about it, but that's only used by low-level thugs. What he showed him was amazing. It could be considered something they could even learn as a military standard. Kinuan confirms that in the past, it was considered, but there are 3 major problems with this combat method. Luka knows that one of them is that it's hard to learn, which Kinuan confirms, and calls him smart for recognizing it. Now that he has figured out one, what are the rest? Luka figures that the user's brain must be affected somehow, since he started to bleed. Kinuan says that he is right again, but as for the third reason, he cannot know, not yet at least. Luka is willing to take these risks, if it means that he will get stronger, but Kinuan tells him that he's not the one who will decide that. He is already a pretty good asset to the Empire. Does he even realize just how much money has been spent on him? Luka tries to say something, but Kinuan wants a question answered before he does. Training the Archi's combat method will inevitably cause problems in the brain. Can he swear to him right now that he will stop using it when that happens? Luka knows that this man can smell liars, so he says that he cannot swear that, but he can promise to try his best not to use it. Kinuan likes his honesty, and suddenly trips him, making Luka fall on his back. From this moment forth, he should always expect an attack from Kinuan. This way, he will be ready for all situations. Luka knows that this means he agreed to train him, and Kinuan tells him to get up already. He likes fast learners. A month passes, and Ile wonders if Luka has had enough sleep, because his eyes are quite dark and digged into his skull. Luka writes this off as being busy, but he has been training with Kinuan daily. Instead of teaching him something directly, Kinuan wanted him to observe and learn on his own. The Archi's combat method is extremely different from what he had learned before. Most combat methods focus on learning a specific skill, and then honing it until mastery. The Archier's combat method, however, seeks to make the most out of all the skills that he has. It's a superior combat algorithm that uses all the weapons in one's arsenal to create the most efficient fighting method in seconds. Instead of an augment or training, it utilizes the brain's untapped potential. Luka asks Ile how his mission went, who says that it was pretty boring. All they did was get rid of a malfunctioning droid. All the missions they have been receiving are something like this, basically child's play. Luka suggests that the Korite must be careful because of the incident that happened last time. Is that why the Chief Centurion hasn't been seen around as of late? Ile says that isn't it. He has heard some stuff from his family. Luka wonders if there's a rebellion or something at hand, which Ile confirms. He doesn't know any details, but a group has begun plotting their rebellion within the Empire. Luka takes in this information. Just when they are about to start a war with the Korites, some dumbasses are thinking of rebelling. How stupid of them. Ile suggests he doesn't disregard their idea as stupidity. He will rot from the inside if he does. Luka instantly pins him and prepares a strike. He has warned him countless fucking times. He can overlook his wanting to leave the Empire, but if he becomes an enemy, he will not leave him be until he rips his head off. Ile explains that he passed the aptitude test for the Imperial Guard too. He just thought that the notion would be more important for the Empire. He should calm down already. Luka tells him to not make such statements anywhere else. He does not want to see his name on a rebel list or something. Ile knows. He can only speak of these things in front of him. Luka is still a bit mad, but Ile tells him to lighten up. He will treat him to some food this weekend. Luka already has plans for the weekend, and also tells Ile to stop talking, as he's irritating enough already. Ile wonders if it's a girl he's going to meet, but Luka is just waiting for him to leave. The next day, Luka goes outside and into the lower sector, where he walks with Kinuan. Has it not been some time since they both have been here? For people like them, who are from the slums, this is a familiar place. Luka says that the moment he became a trainee, he thought that he would never come back here again. He did not want to breathe the same air as these degenerates. Kinuan can see that. He's the type that climbs high after all. Luka certainly didn't expect Kinuan to bring him here, as the air of this place is bad. The city is powered by thermal energy from the magma which lies beneath, and all that unfiltered waste and heat is released into the lower sector. In his younger days, back when he was still breathing this air every day, he felt like he needed to get out or he would stay a loser his entire life. He certainly doesn't like being here, as it brings some bad memories. Kinuan tells him to follow closer, and they soon arrive at a darker place than usual, which Luka believes is a black market. Kinuan asks if this is his first time here, and Luka explains that there were a few kids that came to this place and never came back, so he wasn't stupid like them, and never came here. Luka is surprised by how much Kinuan knows of the lower sector's layout. Someone who has been an Imperial Guard for entire decades knows of this place better than he does. Kinuan also told him to use prosthetic arms and legs with low energy on this adventure of theirs, making him wonder what he is planning. Kinuan tells him to get ready, and they both walk to a guarded place. One of the guards tells him to stop, as the spectator hall is on another entrance. But Kinuan explains that he wants to meet the supervisor of this fine establishment. The guard asks how he knows their boss, Aleph, but Kinuan doesn't. He just really wants to meet him. The guard immediately pulls a gun on him, but he can't even get a shot in as he gets tripped by Luka and put to the ground. Before the other guard can pull out his gun, Luka points the gun he took from the guard and tells him not to move. Kinuan is glad that at least one of them understands. Could he bring Aleph down right now? Their guns are dropped on the ground, and the guards walk with shame through the staff-only door. Luka asks Kinuan what he would have done if he was not fast enough, but Kinuan would have just searched for another way in. Luka inquires about this place, and why it's so important to them. Kinuan tells him that this is the most frequented place in the entire empire. It's the Colosseum. Kinuan and Luka eventually get their wish and meet up with Aleph, who doesn't seem that happy to see them. Kinuan tells him to put Luka in a match. He doesn't care about the winnings, and also couldn't care less if he dies. Luka now understands why Kinuan told him to bring low-output body parts. Aleph takes the last puff of his cigar and throws it at Kinuan, who allows Luka to catch it for him. Aleph and his guards point their guns at the two, and Aleph tells Kinuan that he's a little confused. They did not let them in because they wanted to grant their little wish. They just wanted to dispose of the body easily, without much cleanup. Luka knows that this is a bluff. If this was his intention from the start, he would have already shot at them. He analyzes this situation. There are 3 common pistols aiming at him, and another 2 guards outside of the room, also brandishing pistols. He simulates what he would do in case of attack. First, he would kick the table in front of Aleph, allowing him enough time to kick his face in. His guards would naturally get flustered and swiftly aim at him, but since he would have Aleph hostage, they won't be able to do much. He would then use Aleph's pistol to shoot them. The outside guards would come in upon hearing all this commotion, but he would already be above them and end their lives easily. With this, the simulation ends, just as Kinuan asks what happened to the previous owner. Aleph is surprised that he knew Tora. That bastard died. He got caught rigging some matches. Kinuan can tell that he killed him and took over the business, which is quite profitable. They were friends, but he will not fault him for what he did, as Tora also did the same thing to get in this position. It's a natural occurrence around these dark places. Aleph comes closer and points his gun at him, asking how the hell he even knows all of this. Kinuan advises him to calm down. He wouldn't want to end up where Tora is right now, right? This spooks Aleph enough that he backs away and asks if all that he needs to do is put that kid in a match. He analyzes him, seeing that his arms and legs are not combat models and that his body is mostly organic. He would get crushed into a pulp the moment he walked into the arena. Aleph agrees to put him into a match, but he should offer something in return, right? Kinuan says that he knows where Tora kept his safe. He has his eye, does he not? Aleph is quite amazed by how much he knows, to the point where he's curious about his identity. Kinuan suggests he thinks of him as a ghost of the past. Aleph offers him some women and booze in the VIP seat while he watches, but Kinuan only wants the booze. He also mentions that this kid doesn't need special treatment. He should pair him up with his best fighters. Luka thinks that he has much to learn from this man. He took control of the situation by only moving his mouth. He has what he severely lacks. In the waiting room of the Colosseum, Kinuan immediately rips the camera up, and Luka asks what is in Tora's safe, because Aleph seems to really want it. Kinuan tells him that it's a treasure that's enough to change his life. Luka wonders what he would have done if a fight broke out, which Kinuan knew he would be interested about, but he will tell him after he wins. His opponent is this guy, Gabriel, the so-called Steel Fist. As Luka stares at his picture, Kinuan explains that the Colosseum is filled to the brim with idiots who use illegal mods at the cost of their already short lifespan. He is likely the type who does not worry about his future. He should remember these words, which are the fundamentals of the Archi's combat method, to be satisfied with what he has. Luka disagrees. Being satisfied means losing, but Kinuan tells him that water does not lose, it just changes form. He has potential, as he has been watching him ever since he deflected those bullets. He was surprised when he came to him for training. As a man of talent, however, he really came to the right person. Luka feels that this praise he's receiving is unfounded, but Kinuan believes he deserves this much. This might be the last time they see each other after all. Luka gives him a lukewarm smile, as he knows what he means. The match soon begins, and the presenter starts to talk about Luka, as this is his first match. Yet he dares to challenge Gabriel. He's still a brat who dreams big, and his name is Good Boy. Luka doesn't like that shitty name, but he won't complain now. The spectators begin to talk trash, saying that he only came here to end his life. Some want to see him get slaughtered, and some are simply here to enjoy seeing the life getting snuffed out of his eyes. Luka knows what this is. It's the dark desire all humans have to see others suffer. These fuckers must really like seeing limbs being torn off, which is good, very good in fact. He can sense that he is finally back home, and can unleash his true potential. As a child, Luka doesn't remember ever being full. An official from the Empire would stop by and send supplies twice a month, but the principal of the orphanage would sell more than half of that, to line his own pockets with dirty cash. So to the kids of the orphanage, starvation was something they just had to live with. However, even when starving, Luka never stopped working out. He read every book that was filled with dust from disuse, and lifted chunks of iron to strengthen his muscles. The other kids took him for a dumbass. Why was he training when he was just going to get hungrier? Luka's thoughts were simple. He can get more with his power if he is hungry. The rule of the strong eating the weak was instilled into Luka's young mind pretty easily. It's only natural for the strong to be full, and for the weak to starve. The disdain his fellow orphans felt turned into anger. He was a double-digit kid just like them. Even if he bullies them, he will never get out of this, because he's a lower-floor rat at the end of the day. Luka did not care for the cries of sore losers. At the age of 12, he received the second aptitude test, and got his name on the list of potential Imperial Guard trainees. 3 years later, he officially became a trainee. Those bastards from the lower levels can't even begin to fathom the life he lives. He hoped that he would never meet those losers again, and so he forgot about this place. Returning to this place came as a surprise for him, but enough of that now. He has a brute to take down after all. Gabriel can't believe he got matched against a brat. Aleph must have been smoking some nasty stuff to come up with this, but he doesn't care as long as he gets paid. Luka begins analyzing him, and sees that his limbs are all from different manufacturers, and he has disregarded the symmetry and balance that is recommended. His spine has become curved from the sheer load of his modifications, and the parts of his flesh that are in contact with the metal suffer from inflammation. He probably can't fall asleep without some high-quality painkillers. He cannot deny, however, that this guy is powerful. He modified his body for the sole purpose of strength. Upon a closer look, Gabriel sees that he doesn't have a bad face, so he should serve him for a night. Luka understands it is true that he will need a servant from now on because he will become crippled from today onwards. Gabriel becomes enraged at this provocation and tells Luka that he will bash his body into the ground until he begs to become his servant. Aleph comes on the mic, telling everyone that this miniature version of a real fight is about to begin. Will this boy survive, or will he be crushed by Gabriel? Luka knows he's at a disadvantage since he's using non-combat parts against someone who only has combat ones. This basically means that he will die if he gets hit even once, so he plans not to do that. He dodges Gabriel's first attack and hits him squarely in the face with his foot. However, this hasn't even tickled Gabriel, but Luka knows if that hit was done with his normal parts, this bastard's head would have popped like a cherry. He backs away, but notices how cramped the stadium is, meaning he cannot keep running. All of Gabriel's attacks are lethal, and he does no damage. Even the audience is not on his side, since they are screaming bloody murder at him. This is the situation he is currently in, making him wonder what Kinnuan wanted from him, since he was the one who brought him here. He remembers what he said, to be satisfied with what he has. Wishing for something he can't get now is wasted time. Praying that a gun will drop from the sky is the same. No matter how little he has, he must fight. Kinnuan took his top-shelf limbs away but left his eyes. This means that he doesn't expect him to overpower Gabriel but rather outsmart him. He finally seems to understand what acceptance truly means. Arki's combat is about using what one has to its full potential. Gabriel's fists are destructive drills. The small tremors in his shoulders are the triggers, and the direction of his gaze is where he aims, with the length of his arm being the range. It is quite slow compared to a real gun, and its trajectory, well, it's really quite obvious. Kinnuan looks at him in shock and sees the genius in him. He has already experienced Akri's combat with his own talent, so he wants to see even more of his potential until he becomes a god of war. Gabriel tries his best to hit him, and the audience is very mad that there's no bloodshed, but Luka is locked in. His concentration is better than ever, and he can now fully predict Gabriel's attacks. Perhaps he can even do what Kinnuan did to him. He attempts it with Gabriel's next attack, and actually succeeds, allowing him to land a nice kick on him. Luka is actually getting excited now. This is how Kinnuan was seeing him when they first fought. Gabriel doesn't know what trickery he used, but it ends here. His feeble attacks will not work on overwhelming power. This next attack does graze Luka, but he does dodge it. He knows that his attacks won't work against him, but since he lacks power, he will substitute it with something else. He turns around in the air as he grabs Gabriel's neck, who at this point can't do much, and subsequently gets his neck snapped. Luka can see the horror on the spectators' faces. Those who wish for his downfall can do so forever, because he will keep climbing, and their words shall never reach him. Luka knows that if this was a true battlefield, he wouldn't have been able to concentrate much, but because this was a controlled environment, he was able to take this guy down with relative ease. As he walks out, he abhors what he's thinking, but now that he has proven himself, Kinnuan really is a great teacher. He congratulates Luka and welcomes him to his induction into Arki's Victima. Luka has realized that accepting the situation doesn't mean losing, it means adapting. Kinnuan decides to give him something, credit chips, which makes Luka think this is the payout of the fight. Kinnuan denies it. These are for Gabriel's hospital bills. He should go and give it to him, as it's not a bad idea to show generosity, as long as he doesn't get taken for a fool, that is. Luka doesn't care for this. He wants to be a soldier, not a charity worker. Kinnuan pats him and says that he's pretty naive with interpersonal relationships. But seriously now, the kindness he's talking about is basically an investment. He will build it up for the future, where he will be able to make use of it. Just like how today, he reaped what he sowed in Torah. He should not forget that creating advantageous environments for oneself is what makes a good soldier. Luka has misjudged him. He thought he was teaching him because he was impressed by his talent and felt a connection since they were both gutter boys. But now he knows that one day, Kinnuan will take what he invested in him. When that day comes, he simply cannot refuse. Gabriel's doctor analyzes him closely and finds possible signal wavelengths that are too short to be compatible with his cyber body. His current being draws so much power that it will inevitably cause errors or freeze entirely. So he recommends using Xeonix Corp's Hyperlindell number 9 instead. # not sponsored. Gabriel can't afford the newest model. Is he trying to rip him off or something? Everyone around these parts seems to be doing well with shitty tech. The doctor informs him that those people do not have as many modifications as him. If he had at least considered the compatibility, an older model would have been perfect. Gabriel explains that he was poor. He just put on whatever he could get his hands on. The doctor tells him that he will buy his current limbs and attach new ones according to his budget. But combat models are a no-go. With his current budget, he can only afford used goods. Gabriel wants to snap at him, but then Luka enters the room, glad to see him as lively as in their match. Gabriel immediately becomes enraged upon seeing him and swears to kill him no matter what it costs. Luka comes closer. He has warned him before their fight that he was going to cripple him. He suddenly remembers what Kinuan said, so he goes to the doctor and asks if they will be enough for that hyperlindel he was talking about. The doctor confirms it, but Gabriel asks what the hell he's doing. Luka simply tells him that he's paying his bills, only because he feels like it though. Gabriel is shocked. His good boy stage name really fits, huh? He calms down a bit and asks for his real name. Luka tells him, so Gabriel vows to help him should he ever need his aid. He will repay him no matter what. This is a new feeling for Luka, but well, it really doesn't feel bad. Later he trains with Ile at the training grounds, but even though Ile is fast, Luka simply blocks his attack and ends the round with one punch. Ile still feels the pain minutes later. What he used must be the Archi's combat method, Kinuan though him, right? Luka confirms it, but Ile thinks of it as thuggish. Stuff like holding glass shards between the fingers or chucking dirt into the eyes. Luka knows how hard it is to believe, but that's what Kinuan told him it is. Ile can't even dream of beating him in a 1-versus-1 again, but Luka tells him to be proud. He's the only trainee who can even put up a fight. He thinks that the Colosseum experience was enough to shake the foundation of his ideas of combat. It's as if every technique he has practiced until now has been condensed into one small drop of knowledge. Ile sees how happy he looks and asks him to help him out, if he's not busy at least. They both go to the visiting room, where Luka is quite displeased to meet Ile and Lillian. Ile apologizes. Their families have always been on good terms, so he couldn't just refuse. Lillian believes she has applied for a visit numerous times already. Why is he ignoring her? Luka says that he's just not interested. He hoped that she would see that as him refusing. Ile tells him to put it nicer, but Luka advises him to shut up. This situation alone is pissing him off pretty hard. Lillian starts to get peeved. Why does he hate her so much? Luka tells her that he has no time for a woman, unlike her. Someone like him who was an orphan has no way of climbing back up if he ever trips. Lillian says that being with her would be a benefit if that's the case, but she doesn't get it. If he were to rely on her noble power, it would also mean he could lose every single thing on her whim. He intends to be free and climb on his own merit. Lillian finds it strange that he says that, since he's close with Ile, but Luka tells her he only thinks of Ile as a friend and a trustworthy teammate. He doesn't hang out with him because of his status. Lillian understands. He doesn't plan on giving her a chance if what he says is true. Luka finishes his drink and gets up. Unfortunately, he hopes that they won't see each other again. As he walks through the corridors, Ile comes behind, saying that he shouldn't have been so rough. Luka tells him that she would have still clinged on if he wasn't, but Ile doesn't get it either. Couldn't he meet her a couple of times? Luka's reasoning is simple. He doesn't know why Lillian even likes him. She's approaching a gutter boy because her dead brother said nice things to her? She's surely plotting something. Ile understands. He's scared because there are variables, but if he takes it slow, Luka suddenly asks if he likes that girl, making Ile wonder what gave him such an idea with a broken tone. Luka could tell by his gaze and breath. It seems like Archi's victima is not just for combat. Anyway, if he's the one who likes her, he should cut all this crap and go for her. Ile would like to, but that's impossible for someone like him. Later, Luka goes to a construction factory and stands at the edge of the lava's hottest place with Kinuan. This is meditation training. He's meant to remain calm regardless of what he feels. He asks Kinuan how he would have won the fight that would have broken out in the gang office, but Kinuan already said he would tell him. Only if he won, that is. Luka knew there were armed thugs inside and out. He did not see any way to get out unscathed without any weapon. What would he have done though? Sensing his curiosity, Kinuan says that he would have ducked under the table when the shooting started, leaving Luka puzzled. Aleph and his men had guns. If his first move was hiding, he would lose any chance to counterattack. Kinuan knew he would look to take them down, even if he had to tank a few bullets or two. Luka asks what he would have done if he wasn't there or decided to hide. But Kinuan doesn't imagine that he wanted to take Aleph hostage, right? He and the others have been trained for maximum aggressiveness, so it's only natural. However, if he did that, he would have been shot. It's not weird for gang bosses to change suddenly in those places. All he would have offered them was an opportunity to become bosses. Naturally, once he became the target, he would have taken those guys down and escaped through the secret passage. Luka is impressed. Not only did he predict his actions, but he even had a secret escape route in his mind. He cannot even fathom how far he thinks in such situations. Kinuan gets up and tells him that in a language long forgotten, Archi's means keen eye. Archi's victima uses all possible resources of the brain to amplify insight to the peak. He should remember that. It will be useful later. Luka gets up, thinking about the problem with one's brain being a side effect of pushing it to the limits. That's when he realizes, this means that if he equips a Legion suit, Archi's victima will no longer be available. Kinuan is impressed by his sharpness. He thought that it would take a couple of days for him to figure this out. Once one becomes an Imperial Guard, they will be given a Legion suit, but nobody can constantly wear it, as it's a full armor body created with the best technology. Thus, it uses a huge bandwidth of memory signals. So on top of the CPUs that it comes with, all of the brain is used, and not a drop is left. This means that Archi's victima will be useless to him. Kinuan hid all of this while knowing how he would react. Luka blames himself, however. If he knew that it can't be used with Legion, he would have never learned it. He was dull. Kinuan sighs and asks if this is really how it ends. Luka thanks him for his teachings up until now, but Kinuan only tells him to come back once he changes his mind. Eventually, he will. Luka goes to someone's office. It has been 3 months since they last saw each other. He's been pretty busy, so he hasn't had the chance to even come here. This is the chief centurion, Hylas Custoria. Luka guesses he was so busy because of the rebellion Ile told him about, but Hylas is more interested in him. How has he been doing? Luka explains that he has been training alone, as he has not been assigned on a mission for a while. Hylas tells him that he won't receive missions for some time. He's already good enough to act as a good tool for them. He has also heard something interesting, that he hangs out with Kinuan pretty often. Luka knows that the higher-ups have figured it out. From his visit to the black market, all the way to the Colosseum fight, they probably know everything. Hylas guessed that he was training to use Archi's Victima, but he quit recently, right? Luka asks how he knows, but Hylas too knows that it cannot be used with the Legion. It would be meaningless for someone in the Imperial Guard. Kinuan is really a paradox. Those with no talent are thrown away by him, and those with talent soon realize that they have no use for his teachings. This is why Kinuan is the only one who uses Archi's Victima in the Imperial Guard. Luka understands he wants him to continue learning that, right? More precisely, Hylas wants him to be on good terms with Kinuan, so he should continue learning for that exact purpose. This is an order, by the way. Luka's mind begins racing with ideas. So is he wary of Kinuan? Why is he so suspicious against a soldier retired from combat? These questions will remain his own. He will put his life at risk if he gets more details. Luka confirms that he will do just that, and Hylas is pleased. He will keep watching him closely, as he is the type that climbs high and doesn't stop. When Luka goes to Kinuan, he reveals that he did not expect him to return this swiftly, but he did tell him to come back any time, so asking questions really isn't useful here. Luka thanks him and thinks that he accepted him rather easily, which is suspicious. Luka asks why he's in the lower sector, but Kinuan is curious about these toys. Do kids still like such things? Luka explains that when he was younger, he would always stare at them, so Kinuan calls over the owner, as he wants everything on this side. Luka wonders why he's doing this, but he soon gets his answer as they arrive at the 47th orphanage. Kinuan tells him to put the box down in the inner field, then they will take a break. Suddenly, Gabriel screams at Luka from behind, asking what the meaning of this is. Why has he made him into a goddamn bellboy? Luka is confused. He was the one who said that he could ask for help at any time, and since they wouldn't deliver here, they had to use him. Gabriel wanted to help for something grander, like taking down an entire gang or something. Luka says that he knows too. He doesn't need his help in a fight, considering their last spar. He takes a closer look at him, seeing that his new spinal implant has improved his balance well. It seems like his cash did not go to waste. Gabriel asks who this man even is. If he's so infamous that even Aleph did not dare to stand up to him, he probably would have known of him by now. Luka tells him to keep his nose down. He really doesn't want to be associated with that guy. If he had to guess, Luka thinks that this is where Kinuan grew up. He's doing charity just because he made it out. The children immediately rush to the toys, calling Luka handsome while calling Gabriel ugly, who is surprised by how mean they are. Luka sees that two children are fighting over a specific toy, and sees himself in them. They should conquer with power. Nothing in this world is fair. They will get what they want only with power. Kinuan comes from behind and says that they should talk, somewhere quieter. When they arrive, he explains that he does things like this from time to time. The pay is not high here, so, looking at how chubby the principal of this orphanage is, they are smuggling supplies out pretty well. Luka asks if he grew up here, but Kinuan has forgotten his childhood. He just stops by nearby orphanages occasionally. At one point, he might have even visited the one he grew up in. Who rightly knows? Luka looks at him and thinks that he really looks like an ordinary retired soldier. A soldier who was not able to bathe in glory, with a nervous system that is barely working, because it was unable to withstand the overload on his brain. Perhaps this will be him in the future, but at the same time, he will be lucky to get to his age. Kinuan has rested enough, so he would like to get to the point. Who was the one who ordered him to come back to him? Perhaps it was Hylas. Luka stays stunned for a second before averting his eyes and asking what he means. He knows that he must stay composed. Kinuan will see if he's perturbed, so he should relax. But how did he know his orders came from Hylas? How much is this old man aware of already? If he really is hiding something so big that even a chief centurion is interested, then it would be better to just get rid of him now. Kinuan advises him to calm down. If he attacks him with all his strength, it will be hard for him not to kill him. Luka says that he's a soldier of the Empire. He must do his duty. Kinuan laughs. He knows so little that he's not even sure which direction to go. He doesn't blame him though. It's only natural for a soldier to follow orders from a higher up. He truly is the personification of the perfect little drone, something which the Empire yearns for constantly. When he first came to him though, did he really think he did it of his own free will? The moment he performed projectile trajectory manipulation without an assistance processor, the higher-ups were already preparing his future. Finally, they thought, a person who could learn Archi's Victima. He might have come to think that he came to him alone to get stronger after the Korra incident, but it was all thanks to the calculations made by the Empire, fated them to meet. Luka refuses to be swayed by his words. He met a powerful foe in a mission, and realized he needed power. That is why he dug through the records and found someone to help him. All of this was because of his own free will, right? Kinuan tells him that no matter what, every man in this world is someone else's slave. They either know it, or they don't. He's probably running away from reality at this moment. He's still a young man after all, but he should head back now. If he wants to report all of this to Hylas, he should do so. Luka refuses to believe in his words. Although, as he said, Hylas wanted him to continue learning Ares Victima. His mind becomes jumbled with thoughts of doubt. He refuses them at every corner, but he eventually gives in. If even his desire to succeed wasn't his own, then what is he? The next day, he sits in the simulation training room, despairing that he could not tell Hylas about that day. If he did, they would have sent him to a psychological check, because of the possibility that he was infected with some type of dangerous ideology. With how confused his mind still is now, he would have shown a much lower score than before. The Empire does not forgive dangerous ideologies. In the worst-case scenario, they could dismiss his position as Imperial Guard and send him to the forced labor camps. Kinuan probably knew he would hesitate to talk if he wanted to report to Hylas now. He must prepare for the psychological exam. To do that, he needs someone in particular. Ile gets out of his simulatory training, which seems to have taken quite a toll on him, but suddenly a bottle is thrown at him, which his body catches first before his mind could. Luka is surprised he trains too. He's seeing him in a completely different light now. Ile says that losing to him constantly is not that pleasant, but did he come here to cheer him on? That's quite nice for him. Luka actually has a request, if that wasn't obvious enough already. He said previously that noble families mostly rig the aptitude tests, right? Ile isn't surprised he knows. It's a well-known secret, though the unqualified never make it past training. Luka asks how he passed the psychological portion of the aptitude test. If he has a secret, he'll spill it now. Ile notes that this is quite a dangerous thing to ask him, but Luka has already checked. There's nobody here, and he's also doing it for the Empire. Ile won't ask because he doesn't need to, but there is a way, although he might not like it at all. He will have to create a simpler version of his own ego to interact with the outside world, and place his true self as an observer inside. Basically, he's sealing his real ego away, showing only the attributes he wants to. Luka doesn't understand one word of it, so Ile tells him that there are cases where normal people lose their entire personalities or memories due to trauma. They are doing that, but consciously. Luka wonders if something like this is even possible, but he wouldn't tell him if it wasn't. Ile reveals that their brains are in a constant state of confusion. If he keeps acting like a loyal soldier, the ego of being one will envelop the surface of his mind. 2 months before the aptitude test, he woke up every single day and gave his prayers to the Emperor, copying what his father did. The only issue here is that doing it for too long will shake up his real ego, and eventually he will forget who he really is. Luka wonders where he even learned this, but in any case, if this is the method, then he does not need to pretend. He just needs to act as his past self, the one who received a high score in the psychological exam. He must become himself again, only before he met Kinuan. Ile doesn't even want to know what he's going to do with this, but he shouldn't remind him to be careful. Messing with that exam is basically a death sentence. Luka did not expect to hear that from him, but suddenly, he gets a call from Kinuan, who is probably calling about training. Sure enough, he finds himself with him in the lower sector once again. Today's training session apparently being quite simple. As he tells him that this building is owned by a gang, Luka is nervous about him treating him like he used to even after that day. It's as if what happened didn't even occur in his mind. This is exactly what makes it even worse. Kinuan tells him that he has exactly 20 seconds to clear the room. He just has to take down everyone inside. Luka understands. He destroys the padlock, granting him access inside. One of the gangsters is woken up from his slumber. He sees Luka walking in and asks what he wants. Is he a customer or something? Luka is impressed. This idiot walked up with his gun. There are 3 armed thugs at the playing table, and another further away, probably the boss. There's probably someone using the bathroom since the door is open. The gangster puts his gun up to his head. He didn't expect to bust up someone so early. But what the hell? Within a second, Luka sends him flying, shocking the others. Since there's a lot of things going on in his mind, this is the perfect time for him to let off some steam. The gangster's gun falls out of his grasp, which the others notice, so they immediately get up to retaliate. But once Luka grabs the gun, it's over. He shoots all of their guns away, leaving only the leader left. He shoots in his general direction, leaving Luka surprised. As for someone in the killing business, his aim is shitty at best. With 1 bullet, he takes care of him. But suddenly the last gangster comes out, pulling his pants up and with baton in hand. He gets to take in the sight of what has happened, and Luka suggests he knocks himself out if he doesn't want to lose any limbs like these guys. The gangster at this point cannot refuse, so he takes himself out. Yet Luka can still feel someone in the toilet. He opens the door only to find a woman there, making his blood boil. Kinuan congratulates him for only taking 12 seconds as he comes out. He really did a good job. Luka wonders why they can't just eradicate those bastards, but Kinuan tells him to not forget. They are outsiders, so any more interference will disrupt the ecosystem of this palace. Either way, there are countless people who cannot defend themselves. He's well aware what happens to them, right? Luka looks at the woman. She has suffered this fate because she had no strength to defend herself, while he struggled for power to be where he is, just so that he doesn't end up the exact same. Normally he would go on to call these people weak or idiots who failed to grasp opportunities, but right now, he feels nothing but disgust at how unfair their society really is. Kinuan continued to give him tasks in the lower sector after that day, pushing him into fights without any prior information. He was not doing all that to make him learn how to win. The real lesson was how well he optimized the situations he was simply thrown in. Since identifying the opponent's capabilities is the rule of thumb here, he had to go beyond that and judge the best course of action each time. Kinuan, never the storyteller, continued doing this for some time, his lessons unknown. One day they go to a repair shop where the woman Luka rescued, Gilda, works at. Kinuan asks for a cup of coffee, a long black with some oil, and Luka wants the same, only with no oil. Luka asks why they stopped by her workshop, but Kinuan thought he would be more proud, seeing how hard she's working. After rescuing her, she told them her story. It seems like she was kidnapped and endured all sorts of atrocities for several months. Thankfully, her mind remained intact, and she was able to return to a relatively normal life. The reason she was kidnapped in the first place was because a friend of hers, who had run off with the gang's dough, stayed over at her place. She ended up being their target since they had nothing else to take. However, her friend, who was the root of this entire issue, is long dead. Kinuan reveals that she's from an orphanage. She had a knack for mechanical engineering since then, so he even funded her education. Naturally, he kept it anonymous so she doesn't know about it. Luka is surprised he knew of her from the start. Makes him wonder why he did nothing. Gabriel suddenly shows up, surprised to see Luka here, and asks Gilda for a beer. She suggests something else, since he's already overworking his neural system. After they saved her, Kinuan introduced her to Gabriel, so he became her bodyguard, and she became his mechanic. Luka tells him to listen to her, although he would really like one beer. After their beverages arrive, Gabriel asks if they are the ones who have been poking around different gangs recently. Are they out of their minds? The gang bosses are already starting to group up to